Hello, everybody. We're so excited to kick WX3 off with this amazing panel. I have Renee, Kallie, and Janet here again. Again, just a reminder, use your app to ask questions. If you go into the app and press the hamburger menu and press Let's Connect, you can send questions up here for any of the panelists. And also, you can use your app to set up one-on-one meetings. So we're kicking things off today with a discussion on the LA28 Games. The Olympics and Paralympics are coming back to the United States for the first time since the Summer Games were held in Atlanta in '96 and the Winter Games were held in Salt Lake City in 2002. And we're so excited to have a mix of Olympians and non-Olympians here on our panel. And we'll start things off. Both Janet and Kallie, you guys have had the experience of competing in a home Olympics, Janet in the '96 Games and Kallie in the 2010 Vancouver Games when you're competing for Team Canada. Tell us a little bit just what that experience was like, competing at the highest level of your sport in front of your home country.
Sure, I'll go first because I'm the oldest, so I have to. My memory's a lot longer ago than Kallie's. So Atlanta was my third Olympic Games, and even though it was Atlanta, I'm a Southern California native. There was nothing like it. Opening ceremonies was incredible, and just looking in the stands and seeing the American flags and seeing people I mean, going to a different country, as Kallie can talk about, to compete is a different experience, right? It's foreign. You're not super comfortable. You have to adapt. So just being at home, there's something so amazing about just representing your country, but being at home is extra special. And when we talk about LA28, and what we're doing for our Olympians and Paralympians that are hard at work now training, this is what we want for Team USA, right? We want our athletes to have a comfortability. We want them to understand what we're going to be doing to help them, and we want that the fan support and the fan engagement is something we talk a lot and are planning to do a lot at LA28. So we have those built-in fans. How do we make American fans of a sport like fencing or a sport that maybe athletes or fans don't know a lot about? How do we think about making them fans before they come into the arena so they can understand what they're watching and seeing? So my role at LA28 is to make sure the athletes have an experience that they've never had before at an Olympic and Paralympic Games, and so these are the things we think about.
For me specifically, Vancouver was a home Olympics. Obviously, at that point, I was competing for Team Canada. As Janet said, there is something very different and unique about competing at a home Games. The Olympics, obviously, and trying to be the very best that you can. But when it's your home, there is a bit of added pressure knowing you want to perform, but there's comfortability as well from your fans, your friends, your family, the people that you get to see when you're competing, the cheering. And so understanding that that's the case, knowing that everywhere you look, you've been here before. The food is similar or something that the sights, the sounds, and just what you physically get to see is different. And so in understanding that, there's just a whole nother level of competing at a home Games that people don't always get the experience of, and that not many athletes get to actually talk about. For me, I got to win the Olympics at a home Games, which when you're standing on the podium, and I've been fortunate to stand on a podium at a foreign Games and at a home Games, and to sing your national anthem with a crowd of people that get to celebrate with you and know that you're all living this prideful moment for your country and everybody's singing, and there's a whole nother level to all of that, and it really does allow the athletes to dream a little bigger and to aim a little higher with it being at home. I have teammates now that are already in the bobsled world that are like, wait, maybe I could make the rugby team for LA28, because there is something different. They're Olympians in their own right, but there is a whole nother level to the Olympics and that 1% of the 1% that does get to compete at a home Games, and it really just is a very different experience for sure.
And then Renee, you with USATF. USATF is prepping to have the World Championships for track and field here in the United States in just one short month. What are some things that you are trying to prepare your athletes for and having that experience of competing again on one of the highest stages for track and field athletes?
The first time on U.S. soil. as you pointed out. They are very excited. We are all very excited about it, and it will make a difference to those athletes to have that opportunity to be cheered at home by the fans. So we're very excited about it, and for us, it's a launching pad for LA28. It's the beginning of our road, our journey to goal, as we call it, through LA28.
Okay, so, LA 2028 was actually the first time that the Olympics have been awarded to a city 11 years out. Typically historically it's been 7 years, but then they awarded Paris and LA at the same time. So maybe this is a little bit more for you, Janet, but you guys can come in too. What are some of the benefits of having like that amount of time, and maybe some of the challenges that you've been facing as well?
Sure. On the operational and planning side of the games, our chairman is Casey Wasserman, and he always says, "I can promise you the one thing we'll want more of in 2028 is time." And we're always like, "Yeah, we got 11 years, right? Whatever, Casey, right?" And the other day, I looked around the office and I said to our team, "If we're not ready, we say 6 years, but." Right, we start 6 years from next month, right? And so we have to be ready soon. And 6 years seems like a long time, but it's not really that long. I think one thing that challenged us in LA28 is all of our venues are here, so we're like, yeah, we don't have to build anything. But what that did give us, those 11 years, and I'm sure Renee can speak to this, is what opportunities it's given her athletes to prepare. For us, it gave, and my team, which is the athlete team, to make sure the athlete experience is great, it gave us the opportunity to say, what can we do differently for an athlete? And I think Kallie would tell you, you get to the Olympics, you have 16 days, it is a complete blur, and you almost don't remember a lot of it. And so what we want to do is make the athlete experience different for LA athletes and the Olympians and Paralympians. We're thinking about career transition for them once the Olympics or Paralympics are over. We're thinking about their friends and family and what experiences they have, and how friends and family can support our athletes instead of us trying to find them to give them tickets, right? There's so much craziness. So it has given us the opportunity to think very differently. And I have to say that Casey, as our fearless leader, is all about athletes, right? He's an athlete person. He loves athletes. And so when we say we want to do this for the athletes, there's really no stopping us from the great things I think we're going to do for the participants in LA.
So may I add to that for USA Track and Field, the knowledge of an 11-year-out date gave us the opportunity to actually plan to continue to talk about our sport and to focus on our athletes. We were talking in the green room about the fact that often the Olympic sports are thought of every 4 years. It's a little different with track and field. There's a bit more excitement, and we're fortunate in that. But not all of the other 47 or 46 other national governing bodies are as fortunate. So it's an opportunity to tell the stories of our athletes, to get the young generation of people who 11 years ago didn't actually think about, well, maybe I can be that Olympian in LA28. And of course, that's very real. That's very possible. So it was an opportunity, and we were so very fortunate to have had that opportunity.
Yeah, it's so interesting just to think that there could be, athletes out there who haven't even started their sport or haven't even started competing in their sport, and then could be at the Olympic level in 2028. So.
And to add to that, in the spirit of that, with the help of the IOC, LA28 has infused $160 million into youth sports here in the city of Los Angeles. So any child who wants to participate in able-bodied and adaptive sport can do so for free. And we talk about what athletes can we produce for 2028. What athlete can we introduce to a sport that perhaps they can be at the very least at Olympic or Paralympic trials in 28 that would never have had the opportunity if the LA28 games hadn't had this, it's like a precursor legacy. It's like a legacy before the games even begin.
Yeah. And so when, planning for the LA 2028 games, what are some elements from other Olympics? All three of you have been participants in or part of from multiple Olympics. What are some parts from other Olympics that you hope to see in LA? And then what are some new elements that you guys are thinking about?
I want to hear, so I'm going to listen.
Sorry, I don't know. We can start with you, Kallie. I'm putting you on the spot. Like, what are some parts from all the Olympics that you've competed in that you would love to see in LA?
I think what's really cool is when you get to go to different Olympics, you get a taste of their culture, their experience, what it is that they value, what they appreciate, because at the end of the day, it is a big show. So they're showcasing what their culture and community is about within the world and to the world. What I enjoyed most about Vancouver 2010 is I remember, and I'll always remember this, sitting at opening ceremonies, watching each and every performer, and I was getting so hyped. Each and every performer that was out and all the songs and all the balloons, I felt the most Canadian in that moment. And that, again, is not something that I got anywhere else at any other games. And as much as you get to experience other people's culture, it is very different. And so my hope from an athlete, although I won't be there competing, but use me however you need to, my hope is that I get to be the biggest Olympics fan for the United States, and that we infiltrate as much US as humanly possible into that opening ceremonies, because that is, as an athlete, that is the cool part, that I get to see other people's cultures. But it was something that was very, very unique, and just added to the excitement, less on the pressure, but added to the excitement of the games was the opening, the closing, all of the parties that occurred, just being able to walk the streets, knowing I needed a different wardrobe that wasn't Olympic, because then you would be accosted. And just certain elements you get, and you need those times and those periods when you get to be the athlete, and then you get to also just be a fan of the games.
So on the administrative side, I want you to take the best of the best that you've either experienced or our athletes have told you about, to make the athlete experience the very best. We talk in track and field about our best athletes on the field to play. That experience should be the same in LA. We don't know what the world is going to be like for Paris. We're all very optimistic. But Tokyo was a very different and rather difficult experience for our athletes because of the fact that they didn't have the fan engagement, the family engagement that they have been accustomed to. So this is the opportunity to blow that out for them. And so we look forward to that. And also young fans. This is from now through LA28. You have the opportunity, we have the opportunity, we're certainly going to take it in track and field to engage that youth population in ways that we never have before, because they will be at home. And it's pretty easy to get to LA. It's a very large city, and so there are lots of opportunities in that 2-week period of time. And there is no pressure there, Janet, as I keep looking at you.
We got it, Renee. We got it. We're on it.
There was, I believe you said that there's some things you just can't prepare for, and one of those things even is technology. You can't even prepare for the tech that's going to be available 6 years down the line. And I don't know, is that something that factors into your minds when you're thinking ahead that far in advance?
Yeah, it sure does. And I also remember when we won, we were like, who knows what I'd say, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to have an app for the athletes, and it's going to be in 115 different languages. And our app developers and our tech team would say to me, Janet, we don't know what it's all going to look like 11, 10, 9, 8 years from now. But now that we're getting close, we're starting development of that. I think one thing that we're really working on is the ticketing piece. I know Kallie and Renee, you can tell from your athletes, one thing that always stressed me out was my parents, who were amazing, right, would call me and be like, we need our tickets, and we're 8 miles away, and I have them in hand. I'm like, you can't get into the right. Just that whole. I want to take that stress out for athletes. I want them to have some kind of app to track their families, so they know where their families are, but their families are not bothering them, and they can be in the village chilling out, and they can get their tickets, right? And so it's those kind of things for our fan experience. When you're in one of our sports parks, let's say the downtown sports park, and you want tickets to track and field, but you can't get tickets, but someone cancels, you get a notification that there's tickets that are available, right? We want full stands. We don't want empty seats. So using technology in that capacity, I think I talked a little bit about our fans, right? How do we educate our fans so when they might know what it's like to watch the 100-meter dash, but they might not know what it's like to watch shot put. So how do we educate them using technology prior to and during the games, so when they get there, they can actually watch the shot put and be engaged and be a part of the entire experience, which also for national governing bodies and international federations builds a fan base, and that continues into the future. So technology for us is huge. We are literally just beginning to think about it because we feel like the technology is now what it will be, for the most part in the next few years. So that's what we're really digging into now.
So for us, USA Track and Field, I'm not selling tickets because we don't own venues, but technology is extremely important in tracking the results and tracking just our athletes. And so right now we've had a little bit of debate as we get ready for World Championships about QR codes being on athletes' shoes. Not going to work, but QR codes being used to get information about just to the general fan base about our athletes. So we have some clever things that'll be worked into the broadcast for that, and it is always evolving, and we have to find ways to embrace it and to use it because that keeps people engaged, and especially the younger population engaged.
I'm now sitting here like QR codes on shoes.
I'm with you.
It's like, how do you get close enough to the athletes to get that picture? Anyway, it's a cool thought. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe down the line.
Yeah, from the athlete side, there will always be stuff that's going to come up. I think the thing that I've learned most is how to and trying to manage the things you can control and then giving up control. And to be able to do that to these ladies from the athlete perspective is going to be huge. For the athletes, managing families is a very big stress, and that is something you want your family, your friends, the people you went to high school or college with to be able to come. And they're going to message you in the years, the months, and the weeks before. And you're going to get, hey, I heard they're putting QR codes on your shoes. Send me a picture. From our side, you used to get the negative things from people that would come out of the woodworks out of nowhere. Well, I hear they're going to make sealskin boots, and how can you do that? And I hear they're going to do this. And you have no idea of what's going to happen and what's going on. So to be able to give up, to your family, delegate somebody and go, here, this is where you're going to go, this is what you're going to do, this is how you're going to register, allows the athletes to focus on performance. And ultimately, from our side, that is a very important piece because all of us want to show up, be ready to go, have no distractions, and then be able to perform, to live out the dream of not only going, but being able to stand on top of that podium. And so definitely the focus on athletes and the things that we're going to stress about will be a very important piece. And then managing expectations or just the rumors that get dispelled will also be a very big piece from the athlete side to help.
Yeah, it must be so challenging for athletes to have to manage, not only getting ready to prepare for the biggest competition of their lives, it's also I have to give tickets to all my friends, and all these people from high school are messaging me on Facebook being I want to go to the Olympics. I don't know if that's how your experiences were, but
I got to watch, my very first Olympics was actually in 2006 in Turin, Italy, and I got to watch people do it really well and people fail hard and it affect their performance. And because of that, I learned a lot. And what I would hope to impart on a lot of the athletes, especially going into LA28, is that for me personally, and what always worked was delegating one family member so that I could just ship everything to them, or having a liaison at USA Track and Field or at swimming or wherever that you could delegate and be like, here, so all family, all friends, you're going to talk to my dad. And I had to also manage, and the other part too is, for us competing, you don't always look up in the stands and see your fans, see your friends, see your family or your neighbors, but that is a challenge that they're going to have to face in 2028, which is having worlds ahead of time will be a huge home field advantage for USA Track and Field too, because you look up and you're like, oh, hey, you don't want to be on the starting line and somebody else, go. And you're like, oh, hey, Dad, shoot. How do I? But these are real challenges that not every athlete gets to experience ahead of time. When you're over in Europe competing, you don't face these. People are screaming in Italian or Russian. You don't know what they're saying. Easy to focus. But when people are yelling your name, when people are yelling in your language, when people are screaming, and you get to see the faces of these people, how do you drown that out? And so having the tools and skills in order to be able to do that is really important. And then helping the athletes that might not know. It might be their first Olympics, which mine was in 2010. But I had people that had been there before, done it. I had been to a games before to see okay, this works, this doesn't. How do I delegate the things that are out of my control, which is anything besides performance?
Let's focus back on the athletes a little bit more. And what are some specific things that any of you are involved in for the athletes heading into the LA 2028 games?
There we go.
And talk about the athletes commission, Janet?
Yeah,
or-
sure. So like I said, my role at LA28 is all things athletes. So, every day we talk about making the athlete experience better and different, and using my experience, albeit a long time ago, and other athletes' experience. I said to Kallie this morning, it doesn't matter to me that you're a Winter Olympian. My Athletes Commission has a large number of Winter Olympians on it, because as she sits here and speaks, the experiences are the same, right? The transportation, right? What did your bus look like? One of my buses at the Barcelona Olympics, between prelims and finals, got lost, and we were driving around Montjuic, and then by the time we got back to the village, we had 90 minutes to like dry our swimsuit and eat lunch and go back for finals, right? And so we all have similar experiences. It doesn't matter. So we have established an athletes commission at LA28. We have 9 Olympians and 9 Paralympians. Everything we do at LA28 is equitable, because it is our 3rd Olympic Games, but also our 1st Paralympic Games that we are so very excited about. And that's a whole nother conversation we can have. And so we have Adam Rippon, we have Alex Shibutani, Apollo Onos, to name our Winter Olympians, incredible Allison Felix, incredible Paralympians, Lex Gillette, who's a track and field athlete, Oz Sanchez. So just an incredible group of people that are very passionate about, listening. Every athlete you speak to is passionate about things we can do to make the experience better for athletes. I lean in a lot to our athletes, our Olympians. I really lean into our Paralympians, because that experience is very different. And we at LA28 don't say we know everything about the Paralympics. We don't. I don't know what it's like to be Lex, who's vision impaired, to try to get on the bus, or what it's like to be Oz Sanchez, who's one of our athletes in a chair, and what it's like to load his chair onto a bus. And so those are things that we are responsible for, and I want them to drive that and lead that. And so I like to think that our Athletes Commission is a lot of amazing, famous athletes that are very well known to this room, but the reason they were chosen is they're very passionate about everything that we're talking about here. You talk about Allison and what she stands for. Ibtihaj Muhammad is our fencer on the female side, who is very driven by social justice and what we're doing for the community here in Los Angeles. Scout Bassett, who's one of our Paralympians. There's not gender equity in the Paralympic movement, so they bring things to our attention that, at the end of the day, we are delivering in Olympic and Paralympic Games, but the things we can think about and integrate those into our games, you can't do it without athlete input. We say we can, but no one has experienced it like an athlete has, and that's why they're vitally important to us.
Yeah. And Kallie, from the athlete, also from the athlete perspective, how are you hoping to, help prep for the incoming athletes for the LA 2028 Games?
We'll chat to these ladies after too about it, but I would love to see, and I think what was super important to me, and where I think the Athletes Council and Commission is going to be huge, is just athlete to athlete, the experience, understanding the pressures and the stresses, knowing that how you think and how you feel is okay. The people that I relied on in 2010, in 2014, even being, overseas, and certain milestones or positions that we're in, what's it like? And a lot of us learn through, trial and error, but other people's experiences. And so if I can offer my advice, having been to a Games, to any athlete that will and be there in 28, having been there and having been successful, the things that I worked, hopefully that can help. Obviously, every athlete's journey is different. Every athlete's story is different, and how they think and how they operate is different. I don't plan to tell people what to do, but at the same point, if my experience can help give some guidance and pick a path where they might not know or be at a crossroads, then I hope that my experience can help and make a difference, so that we can be not only happy with our performance, but we can succeed to the level that we want to as athletes. And so that's how I see my role. I don't know what that looks like yet. We still have 6 years. But hopefully at that point, my advice will be able to be used for a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
And then just quickly to add on to that, I think the biggest challenge that most people might not know, especially for these ladies, there's the athlete side and experience. Having been, and I got to go and attend Rio in 2016, being a spectator and being a fan is very, very different than being an athlete. and they are very two different worlds. So wanting to put on the greatest show ever for LA, for the entire world, and for friends and family, and then wanting to make sure all the logistics are handled for the athlete are two very, very different positions, which will make it extremely hard to be able to do both. I think it's possible, and leaning in on one or the other to help will definitely make this Olympics very unique. And I think that's what's cool about adding the athlete input in order to experience or help, make the show fantastic, and then making the show help the athlete experience.
Mm-hmm. And Renee, is there anything that you guys are working on at USATF?
At USA Track and Field, we are, and we have been focused on our athletes. It is basically the guiding principle of our CEO, Max Siegel, who's been with the organization for 10 years. He had a background with athletes before, and he made that a focus of the organization. And I think that everyone from the grassroots on up, they would all agree, our different groups. So you don't get the world's best track and field team without giving them the resources that they need in terms of training, in terms of training opportunities, in terms of research that we do with our sports science and medicine team. All of those things go into that formula. But it's known as one of the most accessible sports that you can participate in. Often that comes with people that have concerns about rent, their next meals. Our athletes often don't peak until after college. And while we have a great college pipeline system, what happens after when you don't have a track to actually practice in? And so we have programs in place to help with that, and to help our athletes, and to identify talent, and to keep the talent able to practice and to be motivated, and to have what they need in order to survive while they're trying to make the world's #1 track and field team. Yeah. And we will continue that through LA28, and I expect beyond.
Yeah, and also this is a huge opportunity for the younger generations to come up and start getting more involved in Olympic sports. What are some things that the LA28 group or USA Track and Field, what is this is a huge opportunity for a bunch for the youth athletes to come up and start discovering these sports. What are some things that you guys are doing to work towards that?
Well, our youth sports initiative in partnership with the IOC is very important to us. It's something we're very proud of, and like I mentioned, we are hoping to develop athletes. I think we're also thinking about working with our NGBs in some kind of prodigy program. So we all know that while Parks and Rec is amazing, you can't really compete with Allison Felix at a Park and Rec team. So how do we engage with the NGBs? I think about swimming, right? My daughter is 15; she's a competitive swimmer. She swims at nationals. A young girl can't start swimming at 8 and in 5 years expect to be at that level, right? So how do we think about partnering with the NGBs? So we talk about developing these athletes, so maybe they can have opportunities to join a club level, a USATF level or US swimming level program where they will get the training they need. And how do we fund that, right? Because like Renee, not every athlete, there's a piece out in Newsweek this morning about Title IX that I was fortunate enough to write something for, and it was easy for me to say that I did well in swimming because I came from a family that could support me, and there was a certain sense of comfortability with that, right? But we need to think about those other athletes. We need to have opportunity for all, and now I'm going to talk about girls, but we need to have opportunities for all of these girls to compete, because even if they don't become Allison Felix, the things that they learn, right? Hard work, being coachable, compassion, working well with others, failure is the most important thing, I think, right? These are all things that our athletes need, not our athletes, our young people need, whether or not they become Olympians or Paralympians. This is what they need for their future. And and I think one thing I'd love to talk to you offline about, Renee, is the rest of their lives, right? That is what keeps me up at night, is we develop these great athletes. What do they do now, right? Once they retire. So.
And to your point about all the things that you listed about all of the qualities and traits, also physical fitness for life.
Yep.
And that's what you get when you engage with young athletes at a very young age. We do that. We have a robust youth program at USA Track and Field. And in other NGBs they have as well. But of course, USA Track and Field is very large in that respect. And I'm sure most of you in the room, if you have children, they either competed or they will compete, or you have a friend or a niece or a nephew that has competed in track and field. So our challenge or our opportunity is to keep telling those stories, keep engaging them. We have a program called Run, Jump, Throw that we've been, it's at least not, it's 10 years we've been there, so 9 years for sure. It was the beginning of Run, Jump, Throw, and we have touched on many young lives with that introduction of that program, which of course, running, jumping, and throwing, the basis of all sport. So.
Yeah. It's so interesting just to think that like the LA28 games could be the first time that young people see sports like shot put, or even it's like, okay, when you think of track and field, you think of the 100 meters, but okay, there's also the 800 meters, there's the 5K, the 10K, the marathon, and it's such a huge opportunity for the U.S. to showcase all of their, all the different sports, and hopefully expose athletes to as many things as possible.
So just a little side note to what you just said. In our strategic plan, we have obviously youth championships in their youth sports, and it's limited in the disciplines, is really what you're saying.
Yeah.
But we are coming up and beginning this summer with introducing at least one new discipline in the youth space in our summer activities. There are 2 big championships in the summer. So to your point, we are actually introducing, of course they're aware of it because they're track and field young athletes, but giving them the opportunity to participate at the young age is what we're looking to do.
Yeah, it's really just so exciting, and just to think that, it's in exposing them in this way, and it's the Olympics are such a great environment to really bring young kids in and to really help boost them up. I'm going to point. We've got a question coming in from the audience. It says the question here is: in addition to preparing for new tech 6 years from now, how does the team prepare for emerging sports that are yet to be added to the slate? Breakdancing in 2024, and then potentially esports in 2028.
I think that question is for me.
Throwing this to the panel.
So where do I begin? So esports, I don't know. I woke up every morning at 4:10 and swam 12 miles a day. So I think we should just take that offline on the esports piece. So LA, and it's wonderful being a part of the athlete team because I get to kind of sit in on all of our planning for the games, and one of those is our new sports. So super quick history lesson on the international federations and the IOC. A sport at the Olympics is, let's take it as, I'm going to use swimming, is FINA, which is the Aquatics Federation of International Sport. So that is the sport. The discipline is swimming, diving, water polo, artistic swimming, right? So those disciplines push into the sport, and then the event is like the 100-meter freestyle, right? And so LA28 has the opportunity to bring in new sports to the Olympic Games and also the Paralympic Games. We're in the middle of thinking and putting out RFPs for our new sports to be thought about being into the games. And we can't talk about what those are, but you think about, we have people all the time, right? What about lacrosse? What about cricket? What about baseball and softball, right? Because the IOC took those sports out. I mean, I push for softball, right? Because I want that gender piece. But with softball comes baseball. And so we as an organization have to decide if we bring in new sports, right, what is that going to cost? Do we have the venues for it? And then when you get into new disciplines, so let's say FINA wants to add high diving, right? So diving, high diving, kind of a sport event, but with high diving comes more athletes. And so we have a bed limit, and we call it a bed limit because that's how we just keep our numbers straight, 10,500 beds at UCLA, which is our village. So then it becomes a number game for us, right? And we were so happy when the IOC voted to add, we call them the 3 S's, sport climbing, surfing, and skating permanently to the games, right? So we didn't have to think about those. Those are now in our purview, and we also have to find venues for them and find athlete space for them too. So that's fun. But so there's a lot that goes into it. So, people say to us, why don't you just add squash? Or why don't you just add cricket? Or why don't you add lacrosse? Or why don't you add, cheerleading, right? All breakdancing, all amazing sports, all incredible athletes. And it's not that we have a bias against those sports, but there's so much we have to think about. We have to think about what fans are going to buy tickets for. I mean, are Americans that are going to be our fan base, that'll bring us revenue, going to sit through a cricket game? I don't know, right? And so do we want to bring in cricket, but that will bring in a worldwide audience on the television. So there's a lot to think about, and there are a lot of amazing sports, and unfortunately we can't bring all of them in, but I can promise that we are working on that and thinking about what sports we can bring in that will make the LA Games a great opportunity for the athletes and the fans and the media as well.
And those 3 S's, those 3 sports that you're talking about, those are on the